Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. It is the 1st of November. Welcome back to the stream after a little bit away. Hopefully you're all doing well. I've personally had a pretty busy last couple of weeks / month. I had the privilege to be able to go to London, which was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of, I should say I went to the UK as a whole. I didn't just go to London. I got to visit a lot of schools through, hey, happy November, the best month. Hey, KG, hey, Barth, welcome. Happy Halloween. Yeah, we did the Halloween thing yesterday. That was fun. Hey, Shaz, welcome. Yeah, good to be back. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be back as well. Welcome everybody. Yeah, so obviously, like I said, I had the privilege to be able to go around and talk to a bunch of people, kind of all over the UK, Manchester, Nottingham, Derby, a bunch of London schools. So it was really fun. Me and my colleague specifically went to about 10 different locations, and then a couple of other colleagues over a few days went to like 7. So we went to quite a few with the old education team of Side Effects. So really great. Also got to stop by and see the keynote presentation, which hopefully everybody's seen by now. Yeah, so that was really fun. Got to see a bunch of people there, that I don't get to see all that often. And so that was really nice. Met some new people, saw some people I've known for a while. So that was a lot of fun. Got to do all of that. And yeah, it was a really long keynote. I feel like usually they're a little shorter, but yeah, agreed, Barth. It was very exciting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming. And I, just out of curiosity, I guess, just wondering what you all, what anybody might have thought about the keynote, any comments that you have, or, whatever. I mean, obviously, there's, everything's kind of out there at this point, and more information will be coming when the Hive videos drop. Not sure when that'll be. Probably, I'm guessing that probably won't be till next week, but just because there was a lot of them. But just curious if anybody had any thoughts or things that they were really looking forward to, or just little quality of life things that they're looking forward to. Clouds. Yeah, the cloud tool set is really neat. I think it's just a really interesting kind of different way of working with clouds than I would have normally have thought. It's all, like sphere based and stuff like that. So that was really interesting. Yeah, I think it'll be really cool. The noises work really nice. I know there's always kind of been some cloud tools and things like that in Houdini, but like this is certainly certainly a big update to that. I think it'll be really a really nice way to be able to do that. And you get some really nice kind of generative options from the start, right? You get kind of these nice cloudscapes to begin with, which, you could always do in Houdini. Like, it's possible. It's not like this is, groundbreaking, but the actual tool set to be able to kind of guide you through it is really yeah. So it was cool. It was really neat to see that. Shaz, you're saying bubble tools, OpenCL ripple solver. Yeah. Quad remesher. Yeah. The bubble tools, I have, I hadn't seen a ton of that like beforehand, to be honest. That was I kind of saw talk of it, but that was cool. That's a cool little it's a nice little addition. And yeah, the quad remesher will definitely be I think a continuing focus over releases and things like that. It was yeah, it's really like, it's obviously in beta, but it's like pretty fast, which is cool. And I think for a lot of the people like in this, in that watch these videos and that are kind of in this, freelancer world where we're working in motion graphics and things like that, I think you'll find a lot of that type of people will find it really useful out of the bat. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that's needs to be incredibly specific, maybe that higher end clients might be like, we can't really use it just yet. But I think it'll be really nice kind of out of the gate. The Houdini 20 keynote was slightly painful to sit through. Hopefully that was hopefully just because of length or whatever. In person, yes, it was a little painful. I'm not sure, Nick, if you were there in person or not. If you were there in person, then I definitely understand what you're saying. But yeah, hopefully not the length of it wasn't the painful thing to sit through. But yeah, KG, it's an interesting point. You're saying that they're never really geared towards motion graphics folks, and that's, I guess that's true to a lot of extent. Hey Zach, how's it going, man? Yeah, I think the important thing to remember, like when you watch these kinds of things, is like, obviously they're geared towards, the biggest clients that side effects have are like big studios that are using these in pipelines and in these huge kind of massive setups, of users, and using it to move around a lot of data, right? So, hey, Ijaz, hello. Hi, glad to have you on the stream. Hey, Matul, welcome. A couple of side effectsers right there. Hijaz actually just started with side effects, and he's a tech consultant. So yeah, welcome. And Matul, I think he was probably one of the people that did some of the great stuff that you saw in the release videos and things like that. So hello, welcome, guys. So yeah, anyways, I think the thing that I always try to keep kind of in my mind is, like, when I'm watching things that are geared maybe not towards motion graphics, is like, what are the little pieces that you can kind of pull out of there and use? Like, are there concepts that you can use? Are there tools that you can use? Like, sitting through SIGGRAPH for a few years when I worked in a small studio was, sometimes felt like, maybe I'm not going to get anything out of this. But I mean, first of all, I learned about Houdini there, which was great. But, I always would look at these different presentations and things like that and see, okay, yeah, I'm not going to, blow up a Death Star or something like that. But what kind of techniques are they using here that I can pull from and kind of get better results and things like that? So anyways, yeah, cool. Nice to hear kind of what everybody's thinking about and excited about. I'm certainly excited to be able to start maybe taking a little dive through some of these features. It's been a little while since we've had a new release. What would it be? It's over a year now since we've had a release, which seems like an incredibly short amount of time, but I guess we've been going a little faster than that recently. So I guess it's over a year, which is a little bit longer for dev cycle for Houdini recently. But yeah, it's been a while since I've been able to kind of talk about new features and go through things. So it's always fun, and should be, yeah, July. Right. That's right. It was July. I'm thinking August because that was when SIGGRAPH was. And I remember that was like, that was my first SIGGRAPH with side effects. So I'm like, thinking that was when it was, but yeah, it came out before that even. So yeah, it is a little bit of time here. So that should be fun. That'll be nice. We'll get to go through some of that. I've played around a lot with the feather tools personally, a little bit with the cloud tools and, some of that type of stuff. So we'll talk about that. Maybe talk about the SOP whitewater solver, which makes it way easier to set that up and not have to like have a million nodes all over the place doing stuff, like kind of back and forth and things like that. So that should be nice. And yeah, so anyways, let's talk about what we're going to do tonight. So tonight, I kind of just figured, that's a great, it's interesting questions. So Carlos, first of all, do I know if flips at SOP level got faster? I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't heard that, but that doesn't mean that that's not in one of those fine print that fly by at the end of everything. I don't know any answers to that, to be honest. But KG, you're saying you won't hear about any of the nitty gritty QoL stuff. Yeah, there definitely are some really nice QoL, like quality of life stuff coming. There's a few things that I'm really excited about, and I don't want to talk about them yet because they weren't brought up in any of the presentations. But yeah, there's definitely some nice little things that are like good updates that are coming, like things that just a couple things that for me, like jumping back and forth between contexts would have issues, or like, workflow kind of improvements. Like this was a pretty quiet release for Solaris on the launch, but I think there's a few things in there that'll be kind of nice quality of life improvements and, just that kind of stuff. So yeah, it should be a cool release to be able to kind of go in and take a look at a little bit more. But yeah, so anyways, let's talk about what we're doing tonight. So I wanted to kind of make my life a little easier personally. So I was looking through the suggestions, and I saw a video about about light trails, and I was like, oh, that seems like it could be interesting and could be fun, but also it's a relatively like basic effect in a way, but like what are some of the ways you might go about doing it, right? Like how exactly would you think about doing something like this? So obviously there's always a million different ways to do everything, right? Matul, yeah, I know it is hard to like not talk about things, right? It is very exciting, but there's definitely some quality of life stuff coming, and it'll be great. So yeah, if you look through some of those little bullet points and things like that, I'm sure there's some of those quality of life things in there. But yeah, yes, when it finally is released, we'll have a good little chat about it. And yes. So anyways, so I think what we're going to do is just kind of start out and just kind of walk through maybe a way that I'm thinking that this might be most easily kind of set up. Let's actually take a look really quick. I have this video that was sent over here. So I believe this was suggested by Pascal over on the Discord. If you're not on the Discord server, check that out. It is a place where you can actually put suggestions for things that you want to tackle or talk about. This is a still from it. Let me kind of go back here and we can look. So this was sort of the section that I was looking at here as far as like how it sort of works and looks. And it's a pretty basic effect. But I think what we could do, and to be fair, I would doubt that this is Houdini, to be honest. It's pretty basic, motion graphics, tracked type of a thing. It could be, but I kind of doubt it is. And so, but regardless, let's kind of take a look at this, and we'll see if we can't kind of do something interesting here and maybe make this a little more simulation based rather than just, just maybe some particles moving around. But if you want to suggest anything for talking about on one of these live streams. HoudiniHangout.com has a Discord invite. It also has the past streams on there, and it also has schedule and something else I'm not thinking of. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on there. You can check that out. And and just as a reminder too, this stream is on Twitch, it's on YouTube, and it's on LinkedIn just for visibility. So if you're over there and you've happened upon it, which I see Matul is there. So yeah, it's always fun to kind of see people chatting from there as well. I think there was a little issue with Twitch not too long ago. I'm pretty sure that is fixed at this point. If someone comes across that and says, wait a second, no, it's not good, let me know. But I'm pretty sure I fixed it. So sorry for spamming your inbox if I was. But I think that should be all fixed at this point. So anyways, let's start, and we'll kind of play around with making some effects here, and yeah, get something going. So I'm going to close this back over there, and we'll get rolling. All right, let me change my layout here just to make it maybe a little more interesting to look at. Hide that. Cool. All right, let's drop down a geo node as always, and let's call this oh yeah, Pascal, yeah, you're very welcome. Hopefully this will be helpful for you, and we can get some interesting results. So yeah, so particle trail, let's do this. And let's just start with, a Bezier, curve, Bezier, yep. Let's just start with the Bezier curve, and I'm going to enter the view state here, and let's just draw something. We'll get kind of rolling with this and see what we can make. So I'm just going to make some random curve here. It's not going to be anything overly, special or whatever, but maybe we'll just do this, have it kind of zip around like so. It looks like I'm making an ampersand or something here. So we'll do something like this, just like a little figure 8, flat. Let's maybe lift this up a little bit in y-axis, like so. And then if I change this over to F, that'll give me my handles, so I can kind of tweak this a little bit, get this lined up the way I want it to. We'll do something like that. Adjust these around a little. Cool. Ooh, hello. I'm going to change this up and just do the 4 view so I can kind of see a bunch of angles at the same time. And that way I can just kind of more specifically tweak these in the axes that I'm wanting them to be in. So cool. All right, that should be fine. Something like that. Whatever. Decent. All right. So I think what we'll do here is we'll have this kind of, well, right now, obviously, this is a Bezier curve, so we need to maybe do something to it to resample it or something like that. So let's do that. Let's just resample this so we have a bunch of points instead of, these Bezier curves here. I just want that to curve a little. What am I missing here? I'm doing something dumb. Ba, 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 ba. What am I doing here? Okay. There we go. We'll just leave it like that. It's fine. All right. So let's resample this. Resample. Let's see where we're getting here. I'll add some points in there. Cool. Let's just subdivide it, make sure it's nice and smooth. Cool. And let's also add in a curve U attribute. This way we'll be able to kind of adjust this based on, some sort of attribute that's going across it. In this case, we will have curve view, and that will go down the length of this. So you can see that it is going to be 0 here and continue along to 1. So that is, that's kind of the thing that we want to use here. And we can actually, I think what I'm going to do first is maybe have this, maybe appear based on, maybe just based on frames and things like that. We could obviously trim this, right? We could do a carve, could drop this down, and we could animate this, right? So we could have the second U like this and have it animate on, right? So that's kind of one way that you'd be able to animate this, right? And that's fine. You could do something, like this. We could have it start at, 6 frames. I'm going to reduce the length of this. So we'll have start at 6, at 0, and then maybe here we'll have it go up to 72 and animate it like that, right? So this will start like that and then go around like that, right? So we have it, carving in this case, which is fine, which could certainly work, and is a very valid way of animating something like this, right? The other thing you might want to do is have we might want to have multiple points kind of sweeping down this as well. So we'll get to that maybe in a little bit and kind of play around with that a little bit more once we've got this animation going. Another way you could certainly do this is you could kind of define times at which this is going to animate on, right? So what we could do, instead of having keyframes or whatever, we could use attributes to do it too. So similarly, what we could do is do something like a remap. Use an attribute remap here. We could take the original curve U, and then this we could say like, we'll say it's just going to be, call it animate or something like that. And we're going to set this to be frames, right? So maybe we do something like between 6 and, what did we do before here? So this is 72, right? So as now we have this animate here, and we could have it delete based on, delete it based on what frame it is that we're going past, right? So we could just do something like a blast, and we could say if the points, and we'll say at animate is less than at, we'll say is less than frame. Wait, sorry. Actually, I would have to do this. I don't think that'll work there. Is it maybe that? Yep. Cool. And that should be greater than. My bad. So there we go. Now we'll have that grow on like that. And so the interesting thing here too could be that with this one attribute like this, you could like remap different values to kind of exist on this, right? You could have it emit from certain parts based on this. You could have it, the animation could just be a drawing on. You could like take the certain frames and have it only emitting from maybe the beginning of it. There's a few different things you could obviously do with this. In this case here, we don't have that kind of created, so we'd have to, if you're keyframing this, you change your keyframes, you're going to have to kind of think about how that's working with the effect downstream, right? So there's benefits to both. Like this can be a little bit of a smoother way of doing this, right? Because it can interpolate between the points. So, you can do it. You could obviously do that in different ways, but let's kind of go down this route here, and we can maybe try this and see where we can get with it. So, the other thing that you could do as well is you could do another one of these where it would, give it a certain length, or you could write a wrangle that would take, between the current frame and, a few behind it or whatever. So it would give it a little, trailing edge to it. Then you could just set widths and things like that. So there's a lot that we could do here and kind of play around with it. So we've got this drawing on. Let's first take maybe just the end point of this, right? And emit from that, right? We'll just start somewhere like that. So what's the best way we can do this? Let's think about this. So I think so let's do this. Let's do extract point from curve. And let's just say we're going to use an attribute value. We're going to say animate. And then I see. So this is looking at the current value there. So what we can do then is we'll just set up. So what this is looking for is a primitive attribute, and it's going to look up that for the curve and cut it at that point. So then that could give us, so we could just do this like a prim wrangle like this. Could set up one attribute here to do this with, so we could just say whatever the current frame is, cut, extract a point there. So, in fact, we could even do this ahead of time here, because then that way we'll make sure that we have our point, and we can emit from that, and then have this kind of secondarily. So we can take that. Sorry, I'm just setting these up a little bit. So let's set this up as, we'll say f at cut val equals at frame. So that's just going to set up an attribute here that's going to be a primitive attribute. It's going to tell us what the cut value is. That's just going to be based on our frame number. And then we can use this here to say cut value. And now we have a point that's going to animate along that trail and will be right where that blast is as well. So it'll kind of go a little bit in front of it at certain points and behind it, just because we're dealing with, fractional value here. But we can just kind of emit from that and let that, be our point that's kind of moving through here. So what we can do as well with this is we can also get a value. So what we can say is, let's do point velocity. We can get a point velocity here from this. We should be able to get that based on deformation. That should be good. So here we have that going around. Cool. And that should work just fine. What we could do then is just, we kind of have our actual geometry here. If we merge these back together, we'll have our line kind of extending with the point at the end. that we can animate from that has velocity on it. And so now if we take, I'll just put some nulls down here to kind of explain what we're doing here. So this is going to be our trail, trail poly. We'll say these are going to be our trail particles. Oops. Cool. All right. So we've got, ooh, sorry, Matul, I did not see your message. So what did you say? Enumerate and using index attribute, we emit only on index 0. Yeah, you could probably do that if you're talking about on the point. If you're saying to just emit from the very first point, yeah, I think that could work for sure. The only thing that I would be kind of a little worried about is that using some sort of an index attribute based on changing point numbers might get could get funky. Like, it should be fine. It just depends on how you're doing it, and it could update in a weird way that maybe we're not expecting. So yeah, that certainly could work. I don't see why that wouldn't work, but I'm just going to keep going with what I'm doing here. But that certainly is a good option, and maybe if we run into some problems, we can kind of go down that trail as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, non-destructive is certainly good, and that's sort of the idea here. Is right. We're working procedurally. In this case, if we change this attribute remap at any point here, this is going to change our animation, right? So we could change this to be 32, and now this animation is going to go, much, much faster here. And why is that? There we go. I don't know why that wasn't updating. That was weird. But so now we'll have this animation change. So in this case, we're, having something like this to say, I'll say set, I'll say set effect time range. This would be hand keyframe option. I'll just say that. You can always see how that would work as well. Okay, cool. So we've got these particles here. Let's do a pop network. Grab this here. So for right now, this isn't going to work because it's set to surface. So by default, this is saying scatter onto surfaces. We'll just say all points. Now we should have point. Yeah, it's really shooting out pretty quickly there. There are our points, which are kind of emitting from here. Let's just do points. I think that's actually going to be better for us. Yeah, cool. And what we probably want to do is do some sub-steps. So I'm going to have to think about that just so that we can have a more kind of loose emission in this sense. Let's do this. Let's do life expectancy. Sure. 10 seconds, maybe. We can do 5. That's fine. I'll just give it a little bit of variation here. See how that works. Yeah, it's not even going to vary them at all. I think we'll leave it so that they just kind of float. Let's do this. Let's inherit a little less velocity. Maybe we'll do like a quarter, and we'll say add to inherited velocity. We can add in some variance here. Let's see how this starts to go. Right. So we're starting to get, some effect here. The problem is we're kind of only emitting on these certain frames, and we're not getting those sort of sub-step, those in-between frames. Let's see. Can we do this? There we go. So now we're matching our topology. However, we've got maybe a little bit too much still of the inherited velocity. So what this is doing is just interpolating the source forward so that we're not only emitting on one frame, but we're emitting kind of along the source. So let's do this. Let's turn this down even a little bit more. Maybe turn up a little more variance. See how this goes. Cool. All right, so let's also wire in a pop drag. And then maybe we'll do pop wind here as well. Add in a little turbulence. So let's do this maybe like that. Give it a little less air resistance than the we're starting to get somewhere here. Let's do this a little smaller. I'm going to reduce the inherent velocity again. Oop, that's too much. I meant to do 0.05 is what I meant to do. All right, we're getting somewhere here. Getting somewhere. Let's see. Let's maybe add just a little more variance to spread this out a little more. Maybe we'll try 3. See where that gets us. Turn up the So what I'm playing with here and kind of trying to think through is like, so we have the amplitude, right, which is going to be the strength of the noise that we're putting into this kind of little simulation here. But what we want to think about is like the air resistance is kind of how much it's grabbing that amplitude. So those two sort of work hand in hand. And then also the swirl size, I want to make sure I don't get that too small. So what I think I want to do is, let's see here. Can I maybe kick this up a little more? Just want to see how this is looking. And maybe we'll just do something like just cut the air resistance just a little. Cool. So now we should have kind of both of these things happening here. Oh, are we getting colors from that? I don't want all of the attributes coming out, so let's just do position, velocity, age, ID, life. That should be good. Cool. So we'll just say delete non-selected. And are we visualizing that? Yeah, we are. So let's just turn that off. Cool. So now we're kind of making this little this little curve, right? If we want these things to stick a little bit more to them, to the curve, we can tell it to not inherit as much velocity, so we can bring that down even more, and we'll just have it kind of stick a little bit closer to that initial curve, right? The other thing we could do too is if we wanted this to, if we wanted it to be blowing in a certain direction, we could add just a little bit of wind that would push it in a direction. But I think this is going to be kind of doing what we want to, as far as with this effect, right? So we've got this effect kind of flowing along like that, kind of doing what we want it to. So let's do this. Let's look at this. So we have 1 point here, right? But what we probably want to do is have it I'm just trying to think here too. So I feel like we might want to do this because we're only extracting a few points here. So that's kind of making it a little bit too tight there. So let's bring this back up to 72. We'll kind of slow this down just a little bit more. See how this works. And now actually I feel like it's like spreading too much now that I've slowed it down a little bit. So let's just go back here. We'll tweak this a little bit. Maybe add a little less variance to it. Like that. Cool. And then what we could do as well, we could take that and we could kind of adjust these curves here. So, sorry, what am I doing here? So we've got this curve. We're resampling it here. We're setting our time range on it. What we could do, we could actually do a sweep and take this, right? That's our backbone curve. Yep. And then the cross section. So what we might want to do here is just have a few points kind of randomly scattered. So we could say, let's do this. Let's just set a grid, a few randomly scattered points on it. So in this case, woo, just want to make sure I have this in the right direction first. So there we go. There's our grid, right? But what we could do instead of that is we could just do a scatter on this. That's obviously way too much. We could just do, I don't know, like 5. And we could sweep that. A circle with a mountain works well. Hey, Crossfader. Hello. Circle with a mountain works well. In what way? What way does a circle with a mountain work well? It does work well for random noise, I agree. Why is that not sweeping? I'm doing something stupid here. I think. Oh, for an emission source. Yeah. True. Why is this not sweeping? I've done this before a long time ago, and I thought this still would work. No, yeah, I'll try that. I don't think it's that. No, I am confused because I've definitely swept like points before, I thought, unless I'm just losing my mind. Could be. It's happened before. I definitely did something like this. Well, let me try something else here. So I've done a circle before, right? Just a circle. If you take this, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, let's do that and then sweep it. There we go. That's weird. Huh. That is really strange. I thought it would work with just points, but yeah, great. Good call. There we go. It's a default here. Quads. Yeah. Have to be triangle. Yeah. Cool. All right. So all I need is the points there. That's fine. I was thinking that, yeah, it's really strange. I was thinking that you could do it with just points. I guess you can't. I guess I did this with a circle before and then did this exact same thing. So yeah, thank you. Good call. You keeping me honest there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to take, we're going to add some attributes here. We could just call this, let's see, we'll just enumerate these. And we can just say something like curve ID, something like that. So now each of our points, sorry, should have this on points, will have a curve ID. As we sweep them, they will all have specific curve IDs. And then if we use an add sop after the fact, we could do polygons by group, and we'll say by attribute, and we'll say curve ID. And now we have those created like that. And what we could do is put this in here, and this should now extract points from that. As we move along here, we should have points moving, and that's cool. Similarly, if we brought our points over here, I think, sorry, I'm just going to reorganize this a little bit. Like that, and that. Let's see. Yep, cool, working. Great. And now we have like multiple curves that are kind of moving around, doing whatever. We can obviously adjust this based on, whatever we might want to do with it. We could say apply scale along the curve. We could have this kind of go in and out a little bit here, like so. We could even take this and push the value up a little bit, however we might want to do this here. So maybe it's like that. Maybe we do those B-splines, just kind of give it a little curviness, and maybe push this a little, push this a little further. Something like that. Cool. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Shaz. The sweep needs a closed mesh. That. I feel like I just am just remembering that incorrectly in my brain. So it's been a long time since I was doing something quite like this, but with like a sweep like that. But doing too much USD, I guess, recently, and in that mindset. Okay, cool. So we're starting to get somewhere with this. We've got some particles kind of going around here. We could scatter more or less here and get a bunch more particles that'll kind of go along this curve, right? So we've got something like that that's just going to kind of animate and do its thing. So we've got this sort of curved, I don't know, whatever. It's doing some stuff. We can set how many number of points we want to do here. Obviously there's a lot that could be done. Another thing that we could do is we could take the sweep and we could rotate it and say full twists. Give it a couple of twists here if we wanted to. And just see how that looks. Yeah, might be a little too twisty, but let's play around with that a little. So what we can do is we can just look at the sweep. Actually, we can just view the add afterwards. And let's see here. We could do maybe... at the end of the animation, could you set some velocity in the direction of the curve so it feels like they continue off the end? Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, so another thing that we could do here instead of this point velocity, here we could do something a little differently. We could take, that's a great point, and we should do better here. So let's see here. We could do a... which one is it? No. Curve. There's one along curve. Brain fart. Orientation along curve. Yes, that's the one I want. So let's just see here. So that should be our orientation along the curve. And I'm going to call this V instead. That should give us our velocity. So this will just be a slightly different way of going about this. We should still have our velocity here. We don't need the up. There we go. I don't know why that wasn't showing before. So yeah, instead of trying to calculate it based on a moving point, which will inevitably, like Lucas was just saying there, Crossfader was saying there, at the end, it won't continue because we have nothing else to compare it against when we're doing that point difference, basically. So in this case, what we could do here is we can extract that. We can extract other attributes here, like our V, and now that should work better, I think. Let's take a look. Let's look and see. I could be wrong. Oh, I definitely could be wrong. Been wrong quite often. And I think that's doing it better now, if I'm not mistaken. No, it still does seem like it's... Oh. That's weird. Why is it doing that? What's happening here? Oh. That's weird. Why is it doing that? So I think what's happening here, if I'm not... Do we have multiple points going on there? That's weird. Is it doing that? It's giving me multiple points in some of these spots. Right here, we have 2 points. Each of these are giving me 2 points. Why is it doing that? Maybe I changed... Oh. maybe that's what I want. That is really odd. I don't know why it's doing that, but we should be able to fix that just with a fuse here. Cool. I don't know why it was doing that. It's really odd. Should still have those velocities. Nope, the velocities will get added here. Great. Yeah, I don't know why I was doing that. Anyways, let's go back here. And where are our points? There we go. Yeah, that seems better. Nope, it's still doing it there. That's probably because of my... Let's try this, see if this is better. Yeah, that seems better. Yeah, now we're not getting that like random thing there. The other thing too that'll help it continue along a bit more is if you want to increase the you know, the inherited velocity. So the higher this is, the more it's going to feel like it's kind of continuing along in that direction. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, Zach. That's literally what I just did. But yes, exactly. So it kind of depends on how hard you want to push those two things against each other, right? Like if you want to really have the inherited velocity really working and continuing along like that, then yeah, it's going to be more. There's going to be a bit more of it that way. So, so yeah. Anyways, I'm just going to bring this down a bit more again. Maybe that'll be better. Exactly. The old speed of light delay. All right, cool. So that's doing something. Now the other thing we might want to do here is well, we definitely are going to want to do some stuff with, you know, with shading and things like that, but we can probably get to that in a second. Let me go back to the reference and just see what we can get here. Oops. That play bar won't play that video. Maybe what we could do too here to make this a little closer, instead of it being so perfectly smooth, we could do a little like a little mountain type thing here. So let's actually let's do an attribute noise vector. How's that? Yeah, that should work. We won't do V, we'll do P. Just give it a little. Just a little bit of noise here, just to give some interest. And I think what I want to do is I'm actually going to give it a little bit. So that's kind of our smaller wind here. I think I'm going to give it a bigger wind as well. So let's do this. So I think we want to give it a little more something here. So let's see here if we can't give it a bigger. Oh, cool. Well, yeah, no problem. I think that's Pascal. Yeah, no problem, Pascal. Yeah. Well, thanks for the suggestion, and hopefully we'll get some fun results here for you to take a look at. So I think this will be a little bit better because we're going to add in a little bit more kind of bigger noise into this, so that it kind of rests a little differently. Another thing that you might want to do here is we could set the amplitude based on the age, so that when it gets to a certain age, it's going to kind of slow down and stop, so it won't be pushing on it as much anymore. So for example here, thanks. Cool. Thank you. So I think what we could do is, so it's not just like continually drifting around, because we want it to kind of stop. What we could do is a little Vexpression, which should be pretty simple to do here. And if we say, so with these, we just say the parameter. So in this case, it should be amp, and then say amplitude equals, maybe we'll do a fit of the age. So we'll say at age, and so from maybe the age of 0 to, these are should be in seconds, age of 0 to 1, we'll have the amplitude go from 1 to 0, and that should work. Fingers crossed, he says, hopefully. Yep. So maybe what I'll do here instead is I'll say from age of 0.5 to 1.5, so that it gives it a little longer to kind of take hold at the beginning, and then it'll calm down and stop a little bit more. We could probably do that actually with both of these. So I'll do this over here, do an expression. We'll do the same thing. And what I'm going to do is just give it a little more time, just so we can actually see specifically what it's doing, make sure it's actually slowing down like I would expect it to. Yeah. And I'll give these just a little more life in them. So we'll say 10. Maybe give this drag a little more drag. What we can do is we can watch, go to the geometry spreadsheet here, and we should be able to see think I'm actually just going to crank this up a little more. What was the original goal? Just something like this. Just a little, like a little particle-y trail type of a thing. So what I'm going to do is actually give this a little bit more amplitude to begin with, maybe like 2. Oh, cool. Less particles. Yeah. Cool. What is this one? I'm trying to remember what this one is. This is the remote one. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Very nice. Here's Lucas's little effect going on here. Oh, yeah. Fun. That's cool. Very nice. A little more the controller shapes in there, I guess, which you could obviously do here as well. You could give it a little bit there. So yeah, if we wanted less particles, we could do something like this. We could reduce it. Something like that. All right, let's just do this at like 120 for right now. That should be fine. And maybe we'll just make this noise a little bigger. Maybe we'll do it like 3 or something like that. Give it a little more amplitude, but it's interesting. Awkward. Let's see. I imagine it has a second layer of effect where where it magnet attracts particles to the line for a more fine shape. Yeah, it could. That's an interesting point. Let's see. Where'd that go? Here it is. Yeah, so the other thing too is that the more that I put the variation in here, so the variance, so if that gets lower, that should keep it a bit more, kind of tight in that shape. So it kind of all depends. The other thing you could do as well is give it more like directionality in how it's emitting. If you were doing something kind of like what Crossfader was saying, you could actually give it a little sphere here. Like if we did like a copy to points. We'll just take a look at this real quick. Don't know if this will be what we want to do. Maybe it will be. So if we do a sphere here, copy these to the points, right? And what I'll want to do is make this in quite a bit smaller. Maybe like that. And instead now we'll go back in here and source. We'll do scatter onto surfaces. Oops. cut those. All right. So now we should have some little tiny spheres that are kind of creating this, right? It's really not going to look all that different right now. But what we could do is we could give it, we could take the velocity here and we could also do a little something with it. Like we could add a little bit of velocity in like another axis, right? So because now we could actually have it go out in two directions kind of simultaneously from one point. Whereas before we could only have, we're going to be scattering onto each of these spheres. So we could actually have it kind of expand, in two different directions based on, normals or whatever. So we could, let's see here. So we did this. Let's do polygon. Well, maybe. Oh, I see what you're saying. So it doesn't look like all free-flowing particles. I think I see what you're saying. So it'd almost be like a almost be like a destination. Like you'd have to like blend it into like a like a position at the end or something. Yeah, it's interesting. I'd have to think about that one. I'm not sure how I would do that specifically where it doesn't look like where it looks kind of more organic. But anyways, what you could do is something like this and have the particles, you could add in some velocity to move these in different directions. I'm not going to go too far into this just because we're going to get stuck here for a while and then whatever. But I think we'll be okay to just leave it like this. I'm going to go back in here, change this back to points. I think again, I'm just going to crank this. I just really feel like I want them to come to a stop much faster. Cool. Simple attribute transfer to line based on proximity. Okay. So yeah, so you'd basically would just take them and apply them to another line basically. And yeah, you certainly could do that. I'm not really sure how exactly what I would do with that specifically, but yeah. I'm liking where this is going for right now, so we'll just kind of keep going, and then maybe we'll do some, maybe set up a little bit of rendering or something like that. Let's see here. Add in a few more points. And maybe what we do as well is, no, actually those are pretty solid lines. There's some weird like little stuff going on there. A little bit of extra. I think I'm actually going to scale these down a little bit so that they're not as wide. So I'm going to take this grid up here. Just make them a little smaller together. Okay, so we should have curve IDs for each of these. Cool, cool. Why do we have a -1 in here? What is my -1 curve? Oh, those are my points. Those are the particles. I think. Yeah, those are the particles. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is keep those. Let's see. Attributes. We should have that in here. Let me just see here. Curve ID. So I just want to, I'm going to use that to do some shading with. I think we'll be able to make that interesting that way, because obviously we can randomize these based on these curve ID attributes. However, the particles aren't pulling their curve ID across, which is a little goofy. So I'm going to, why is it not doing that? There's something I'm not doing properly here. Oh, right. It's because I'm not extracting it here. Okay. There we go. Now if I sim this, those should each have curve ID, and then I'll make sure I don't delete that here. Cool. Now we have curve ID for all of those. We know what curve they came from. Make them each different brightness, and then, yeah, cool. All right, let's do this. Let's take this over into Solaris and get this rendering up. So let's do a SOP import. We'll call this trail points. I'm also going to change this over to Solaris. So I can look at this a little easier. And I'm going to make a geometry spreadsheet so I can jump back and forth here. Cool. Trail particles. Actually, I'm going to call this the same thing so I don't confuse myself. Okay, so we've got trail particles here. I'm going to change this to /geo. I'm going to copy those into an editable layer. That just basically means we're making a layer that we're copying these into. Cool, we got points. Great. Let's do this, and we'll say trail, maybe we'll do trail polylines. Yeah, it's a good question. Awkward. Yeah, the major studios. I mean, if you watch, if you've seen any of like their most recent like talks and things like that, quite a few of them are starting to really push into Solaris. It's becoming really, honestly, surprising how much Solaris is starting to be adopted, even at very base level, just for working with USD. They might, maybe use it as a part of their pipeline. It might have other things that feed into it, but it certainly is like becoming a very popular pipeline tool. But yeah, it's definitely starting to accelerate, I think, and you'll see more and more, talk about it. All right, so let's do this. That should be that. So these will get drawn as ribbons. Ah, shoot. What is the I'm trying to remember if it's P scale that will adjust that or not. Let's see. Do an attribute adjust float just because I know that will give me P scale. A constant value. I think that will. Yeah, there we go. Just need to add a P scale onto that. Maybe what we'll do is we'll randomize that. Let's see. Random. We'll say. And 0.01. Maybe that. And we'll do it based on an attribute, which the attribute we'll use is curve ID. Oh, right. It's like, why am I not seeing that? Oh, interesting. It's only taking one. It's only visualizing one of the widths of that. Well, let me see. Interesting. So I'm wondering if I need it to be widths instead. Let's see. Yeah, it might be width instead of P scale. Yeah, that might be what it is. Because it's coming in widths. That's such a goofy word. It also might not like that it is a point attribute. Might want it to be a primitive attribute. So let me try that there. Or no, what is it? Promote. Attribute promote that from point to primitive. We'll do curve ID. Now we're getting per curve. I have a yeah, so I think it doesn't really matter. I think it's going to to adjust that either way. You can actually see this here. Like if I did like test, this is going to be a primvar. So this is a little USD thing that's happening here. This little Solaris gotcha. So any custom attribute is going to be turned into a primvar. Everything in Solaris is everything in the scene graph tree is a primitive. So this is a primitive, primvar for this curve 0 here, right? So we're seeing that we have test. If I set it to widths, it gets changed over to this kind of, it's not a primvar, it's something that it knows already, just like points or normals, things like that, orientation. So now it knows that this is kind of like an expected value. It's not just like a random primvar that's coming in. The same thing happens if I do p-scale. And so that is part of how data gets converted from the standard kind of part of Houdini into USD. That's just kind of like a thing that copies that data across. Oh my gosh, Twitch kicked you. That's fantastic. Crossfader got kicked by Twitch because he was trying to post something apparently, and they will not let that happen. Anyways, so what we're looking at here is basically it's converting. Oh, you posted messages too fast. Oh man, you're spamming the channel. Anyways, so we've got that coming across now. It should be good. Let's see if that's going to be visible. And it might not be. It might not like that. It's really odd. And it might work if we do a karma node. Actually, we could just swap karma on real quick and see what happens here. Yep. So that's just a visualizer problem in the viewport. So that is not anything you have to worry too much about. These ribbons, and this is something kind of that is tough because while you might be like, well, why is it not visualizing it properly? This Houdini GL, Karma, everything, any of these are hydrodelegates, and they only can kind of get sent to them what USD can send to them. And based on how OpenGL draws these lines in this viewer, that might be what we're running into. And Karma is able to kind of sort that out a little bit better in render. So that's what we're actually running into here. So let's see. Let's adjust that a little bit more. It actually could have been working before as well. So let's just do that. See where that gets us. Let's turn Karma back on here. I'm actually going to mute this just so we can see the width of those. Cool. Yep, we've got some polylines in there that are rendering. I'm going to turn off this highlighting. Cool. Looking good. Then we've got our particles. We can obviously change the scale of those a bit as well. Wire that in. Let's see here. Let's maybe give these some random p-scales based on their ID. So let's do that. Let's do float, attribute adjust float. Again, it's set to p-scale. I'm going to do random. I'm going to randomize it based on ID. That's the custom attribute we're going to use here. So that should be good. Let's just make these a little smaller. So let's say something like that. It's too small, apparently. Went a little overboard. There we go. So we got particles there. I think I want to actually keep those particles smaller than that. So oh, hey Grayson. Oh yeah, you're talking about this. So like if I just did a null here and just had them like this. Yeah, if they get close enough, it'll add a little connection. It's really all it is. It's no keyboard shortcut. Just if you have them close together like this, I'll just drop them in like that. It's not a silly question. It's perfectly legitimate question. I might not explain what I'm doing sometimes as well as I should. Cool. All right. So got our particles here. Might want to make these polylines a little smaller as well. Maybe not too small. Cool. All right, let's do this and let's do a material library. There you go. Another shortcut. Thanks, Shaz. All right, so let's just make a material X subnet. Oh, cool. Thanks, Grayson. All right, let's just call this emission and go in here, do the annoying thing that you have to do every time. Do this. And let's do emission value at 1. We'll just make it a similar color, maybe a blue. And we'll do an assign material. Just as a reminder, this is going to make a emission material and a materials scope, like basically a null. And you can change that right here. You could call this just mat if you wanted to, and it'll go into there. You could say these are great shaders. I can type well, and it'll put it in a one called these are great shaders. So anyways, just if you're wondering what's going on there. I'm just going to drag some of these in here. Let's do the trail particles. We'll just do the top level there and make 2 of these. And we'll do trail polylines. We'll use emission in them both for now. If you wanted to change it later, you could always do that. Just dragging and dropping. Let's go down here. And there we go. We're starting to get something. Let's just add a grid for the ground. I'll add this up here. It doesn't really matter where we're going to add that. There's our grid. We'll kind of lower this down like so. And turn that off. So I'm going to change this as well to put this under geo. So I'm going to do /geo. It's just a way of grouping things, make it a little more obvious. Let's do this and make it a little bigger. Cool. I should probably grab a camera too, just so we have that. Have they added any filters for render glows? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I know that there definitely is a lot of kind of continued development going into going into Karma. So I'm not sure. That's a great question. Maybe look through that bullet list and see if there's anything in there. Also, I know that there was a thing about XPU at SIGGRAPH. If you go back and watch that, there might be some clues in there as well. I don't remember if he mentioned that there was going to be any like glows or anything like that. Probably the closest thing you could do would be using like lens filters for the camera, I think. I'm not sure if there'd be anything in there that you could get to work like that, but that'll do like chromatic aberration and things like that. I feel like a lot of people do that in post too, so I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the highest priority right now, maybe, but I don't know. I'm sure it's something they're thinking about if it's not coming in this release. Okay. Got that. Let's throw a camera in here. So this thing is not yelling at me. The reason that this gives a little error is because it uses the camera to calculate the size of the viewport so that it's, rendering itself properly here. Oh, you know what I should do? I should make another, call one this floor. And I'm going to turn off the emission. And we'll just make the base color like a gray or something. Actually, no, we'll make it a white because it's not going to have any light. And let's add the grid in here. Grid, floor. There we go. Now we've got some materials going on and maybe a little more interesting shading. Okay, cool. Looking good. Let's take a look at this and let's play around with this a little bit. So, within any of our shaders here that we have in Solaris, you have to think about bringing in attributes a little bit differently. I'm making this as a Material X surface, so I'm going to use Material X nodes. You certainly can mix and match in Solaris, and it works a lot. Like you can use, so there's different things in here, right? So I'm using this, the Karma Material X subnet that will shorten this down so that we're only getting Material X nodes and things that work with Karma, right? So like curvature, rounded edge, preview surfaces and things like that. So if we look in here, there's this USD prim var-reader. This is actually a standard USD node and not a Material X node, but it will work in conjunction with Material X nodes. So you can mix and match when you're using Karma. It just gets a little funky if you want straight Material X stuff to come out. So just keep that in mind. I actually did like a whole series of tests when somebody was like, oh, this is working. And I was like, it shouldn't be working. And then talked to some of the developers and they were saying, no, it makes sense. It's actually smarter than you'd think. It's just, you can get into trouble if you want something purely Material X. So if you want pure Material X, just use the Material X nodes, but Karma, CPU, and XPU can kind of figure stuff out even if you're mixing and matching. So I'm going to try to do this as cleanly as I can, but all right. So for that, it would be a geometry property value. So this will read properties from our geometry, as the name would imply. And so what we want to do is bring in these curve ID values. And should be good actually because, oops, that's not right, curve ID. And so what we should be able to do is do things like, if we come down here to our emission, there it is. What we could do is certainly do a range, Material X range. We could take this, go into the emission, and it should be working, he says. Okay. Oh, does it have to be? Well, let's see here. In low, in high. So let's do this 0.5. And the highest is going to be 6. Oh, actually, right. I want to use that for... Excuse me. Sorry. Yes, that should... You're right. You're right. You're right. However, now it's not going to like that. Apparently, I'm allergic to integers. No, what I should do is just create those, some float values, but is there really not a random in here? I thought there was there'd be a random in here. Maybe noise? Would this be? I guess not. Okay. Interesting. I thought I'd be able to get a random value out of that. That's okay. We can fix it. All right, let's go back over here. Let's just make let's see. We'll do a random emission attribute. So we'll just grab another one of these. Yes, there is a Material X ramp. It is actually something that Side Effects developed, and we're going to be feeding things like that back to the actual Material X like subgroup or whatever you want to say, like the working group. And with standards, we will then re-implement the standards, quote unquote. It won't really change much, but it'll basically just, instead of having let's see here, instead of having, so for example, like a color ramp here. So instead of having this little Side Effects, you know, a little Houdini and Material X, it'll just be Material X once they've swapped it out for the standard. But there are other yeah, so there's the color and the float ramp, and I don't think, yeah, this is something different. But yes, we've implemented those in there so that it will work with. Yeah, no, good. Yeah, it is definitely a good thing. And Side Effects is really closely working with not only the Material X team, but also the USD team to make things work well. All right, so let's just call this a mission. And in fact, let's put this, well, that's fine. We'll have one for each. And then we can control them separately. So let's do that. 0 and 1, maybe 0.5. We don't want it to be too dim. And maybe we'll go a little even brighter with some of them, maybe like 3. We'll go a little over bright with them. And we'll use the, let's see, the curve ID. And then we can do the same thing over here with this. As long as we have the curve ID, thought we did. Let's see here. think if it's, maybe it should be in primitive. There we go. Cool. Let's try that. See if that gets us anywhere better here. So this one, we're going to use emission. Why is that not as random as I would want it to be? Well, let's try that. Oh yeah, there we go. We're getting some random emission colors there. Cool. And then we can do the same thing. Sorry, we can do the same thing here, but actually instead of it being curve ID, we should just have it with ID as well. And that should work nicely. And then that'll come in as points. We'll have emission. That should work as well. Let's see how that looks. All right, so if we're looking at our points here, I'm actually going to turn off these polylines for a second just to make sure I'm actually seeing that these are coming in. Does not appear to be, which is interesting. Let me see if I can make that more obvious. Mission based on ID. It should just be dimmer in general, so let's see. Okay. Can I actually just keep that pinned? Let's see. Interesting. Interesting. Why are they going red when I go below minimum value? All right, let me just make sure this is actually being read. Yeah, it is. Oh, that's interesting. They should probably be black if they're not emitting. That's probably the issue here. Okay, so let's do this. Random. And we'll go back over here. This is just me not knowing how to make a shader very well. All right, let's do this. Oh, I think I know what's going on too. I think it's the smallest ones that are going dark. And so that's why I'm not seeing it. So let's change the seed number here because those have the same exact seed number. And let's see if we can get somewhere better here. Yep. Now we're looking a little better. There we go. One, let's see, uniform with outliers. Cool. Yeah, I think that's better actually. I'll just give this a little bit here. Cool. The other thing, all right, so let's go back into Solaris here. What I want to do is turn that off. There we go. That's a dumb check mark. I don't like that's on by default. It's very annoying because it makes it seem like the scene is brighter than it is. Don't really need a headlight when things are glowing. So let's do this. Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere there with that. So, and this will animate obviously as well. Let's take a look at the end of it here. Yeah, there we go. Got our glowy particles. Maybe those are a little too thick, those polylines. Let's see here. Could also probably give these some opacity and things like that. Gonna do that. And maybe we want to just add a little bit more birth back in here to these particles just to make it a little more interesting. Cool. And then we want to make sure we've got some motion blur turned on here. Hello. It's interesting. I don't know why that failed. Does this go after maybe? Yes. Yes, it does. Just looking to see if this is actually going to compute motion blur. Looks like it is. Not that that's going to change too much, but... So we actually have some motion blur going on there. Cool. Nice. Very nice. All right. Well, I think that's where we're going to end it up for tonight because we're going on a couple hours here and it's been a long day and I'm still getting used to being back in the old North American time zone. So yeah, I think we'll say that is a good spot to end it on. We've got a little render going here and we can obviously continue to play around with that a bit. Another thing we could do here is just adjust the floor a little bit so that it is actually picking up the color a bit more because I think the headlight was actually causing some weirdness there. But now we've got some glow going on there. Obviously you could add motion, you could add depth of field and all that kind of stuff to it and make it a bit more interesting from that standpoint. Change some opacity or things like that. But yeah, obviously you can kind of play around with this to your, to your heart's content and make some stuff out of it. But unfortunately, rendering has never been my my forte. But hopefully this gives you an idea of at least how to set some of this stuff up and how you can play around with stuff in Solaris. Sorry for that being weirdly small. Anyways, thanks everybody for joining me this evening. We're going to be doing another stream next week. I'm not sure if we're going to continue doing the Mops Monday stuff going forward. I think I just might need a little bit of a break from that. Maybe I'll brush up on some new skills in there and maybe have some more of those. But I don't know. Maybe I'll put a poll up and see what everybody thinks. Just because I can't be streaming 2 times a week for forever. So anyways, thank you guys all for joining so much. If you would like to be a part of the Discord server, you can go to houdinihangout.com. I don't know why that didn't work. I pressed my button and it didn't work. Weird. Oh, there it is. It just didn't show up in the chat. So yeah, you can go to houdinihangout.com, get a Discord server invite there, and make suggestions and give ideas for future streams. Like I said, I kind of went a little easy, gave myself a little bit of an easier task tonight just to kind of get back in the swing of things. But I think next week we might look at some there was a really cool one about post sim ripples. So I might take a look at that, see what we can get up to, and might play around with that a little bit before a stream, just 'cause it's a little bit more complicated. I want to make sure I can get a decent result. So, yeah, thanks, KG. I mean, yeah, it's again not anything groundbreaking, but always good to kind of see some different ways of going about doing things. So, yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and thank you. Grayson, it's great to have you live, and hopefully we'll see you guys all next week. And keep an eye out for any announcements and things like that on social. So other than that, I will talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.